At my sister's engagement party, under fancy lights and smiling faces, my 10-year-old daughter was slapped so hard by my own sister that she fell to the floor, crying in front of 200 silent guests. Instead of stopping her, my parents blamed us and told us to leave. That night, I didn't just lose my family. What happened after that slap didn't just ruin their party, it exposed the truth they tried to hide for years. And this time, everyone saw it. Hi, my name is Evelyn Brooks. I'm 35 years old, a widow, and the mother of a 10-year-old girl who saved me in more ways than I ever expected. This isn't just a story about a party gone wrong. It's about the night everything cracked open, the masks, the family lies, and the silence I kept for too long. If you saw me on the street, you'd probably think I had things under control. I live in a quiet part of Los Angeles, in a 2-bedroom apartment that once belonged to my husband. It's not a palace, but it's ours. He passed away 3 years ago in a highway accident. One second he was on the phone with me, telling me he'd be home late, and the next I was signing his death certificate. Since then, I've raised our daughter, Zoe, alone. She's 10 now, kind, creative, a little shy, and she has the kind of eyes that notice everything. I've done my best to keep life stable for her. I work freelance from home as a digital illustrator. We have our routines, morning cereal, weekend library visits, and late-night Disney movies with popcorn. But peace is a delicate thing when your family believes you're a mistake they never wanted. My parents, Linda and Frank, never truly forgave me for marrying beneath our class, as they put it. They barely acknowledged my husband when he was alive. And after he died, they acted like I'd chosen widowhood just to shame them further. As for my younger sister, Jessica, she was always their perfect porcelain doll. Blonde, brilliant, beautiful, and now, a successful lifestyle influencer with nearly 2 million followers. Every photo, every caption, every perfect moment was calculated, choreographed, and praised. I was the forgotten daughter, the inconvenient one. And then, last week, something unexpected happened. I received a thick cream-colored envelope in the mail, the kind that smelled faintly of perfume and privilege. Inside was a formal invitation. You are cordially invited to the engagement celebration of Jessica Brooks and Adam Westfield. Location: the Skyline Rooftop, Los Angeles. Dress code: formal. RSVP: required. There was no personal note. No, we'd love to see you. Just a name, a date, and a reminder that I still existed, barely. I looked at Zoe. She was spinning in our small kitchen, her socks sliding across the tiles. She caught a glimpse of the envelope in my hand. "Is that from Grandma?" she asked, eyes hopeful. I hesitated. "It's from Aunt Jessica. She's getting engaged." Zoe's eyes lit up. "Are we invited?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to tear it in half. But instead, I said, yes, we are. I didn't know then that accepting that invitation would change everything. Zoe spent the next few days obsessing over what to wear. She eventually chose a soft lavender dress with embroidered daisies on the sleeves, the same one she wore to her last school recital. She twirled in front of the mirror, arms out like she was catching sunlight. "Do you think Aunt Jessica will like it?" she asked. I forced a smile. "She'll love it, sweetheart." I didn't say what I was really thinking. If she even bothers to notice you. The Skyline Rooftop was everything I expected it to be: glamorous, excessive, cold. Glass walls wrapped around the rooftop, offering a glittering view of Los Angeles. Soft jazz played in the background. Waiters moved through the crowd in black ties, carrying golden trays of cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. Zoe held tightly to my hand as we stepped in. Almost immediately, I felt it, the shift in the room. The glances. The forced smiles. The air around us thickened, as if we'd disturbed something sacred just by walking through the door. My mother, Linda, spotted us from across the room. She approached in a navy blue satin gown, her hair twisted into a tight bun, her expression sharp enough to cut. She gave me a nod so small it was nearly a dismissal, then turned to Zoe. "Who let you come here?" she hissed under her breath. "This is an elegant event, not a playground." Before I could say a word, She placed a hand on Zoe's shoulder and pushed her, not forcefully, but hard enough to make her stumble. Zoe, already nervous, wobbled on her feet. And that's when it happened. The glass of red punch she'd been holding slipped from her hand. Time slowed. The punch flew through the air, arching in a perfect crimson wave, and landed directly on Jessica's pristine ivory gown. A loud gasp rippled through the guests. Jessica stood frozen, staring down at the stain blooming across her midsection like a wound. Then her eyes snapped to Zoe. "You stupid little girl," she shouted. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You ruined my dress." She raised her hand and, without hesitation, slapped Zoe across the face. The sound echoed, sharp and violent. Zoe let out a yelp and collapsed into sobs. Her hands flew to her cheek as her body folded in shame and fear. I rushed forward, dropped to my knees, and wrapped my arms around her. "What is wrong with you?" I screamed at Jessica. Before she could answer, my mother stepped in. "You never should have brought her here," she spat. "You've embarrassed us enough." My father, Frank, appeared beside her, expression stiff, voice flat. "Take your daughter and go." I stood up slowly, trembling. "I just need to explain." "No," Linda barked. "Security." 2 black-suited guards arrived. I didn't resist. I picked up my sobbing daughter and held her tight as we were escorted through the room like criminals. Behind us, I heard whispers, phones clicking, champagne glasses clinking. Jessica stood tall, her ruined gown clinging to her, lips curled in disgust. And just before I reached the exit, I caught a glimpse of Megan, an old friend from college. Her face was pale. Her phone was raised. She was filming. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed in silence, the apartment lit only by the faint orange glow of the street lamp outside. Zoe had cried herself to sleep. Her cheek still held the faint red outline of Jessica's hand. I dabbed it gently with a cold cloth, my own hands shaking too much to hold it steady. I stared at the walls of our apartment, our safe place. The only thing left of the life I had built with my husband. The walls were lined with Zoe's drawings, a chipped bookshelf he had assembled, a crooked photo of the 3 of us at the beach. And still, I had let them hurt her. I had walked her right into it. I was drowning in guilt when my phone buzzed. A message. "Megan, hey. I don't know if you saw me at the party, but I recorded what happened. All of it. I couldn't just stand there. Do you want me to send it?" My breath caught. My fingers hovered over the screen. "Yes," I typed, barely able to move. Seconds later, the video downloaded. I opened it. There it was, every second. The crowd. The tension. Linda's harsh whisper. Zoe stumbling. The punch flying. Jessica's slap. My screams. My parents' orders. Security dragging us out. Zoe's sobs. It played like a horror film starring the people who were supposed to protect us. Tears spilled down my face, not from sadness this time, but fury. I played it again. This time, I watched their faces carefully. Jessica's disgust. Linda's authority. Frank's indifference. And in the background, guests staring, watching, doing nothing. They all saw it. They all knew. I walked to the living room and found Zoe curled up on the couch, a stuffed fox pressed against her chest. Her eyes fluttered open. "Mommy," she whispered. "I'm here, baby," I said, kneeling beside her. She looked at me, her voice small. "Was it my fault?" "No," I said firmly. "None of it was your fault." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I didn't mean to ruin anything. I just wanted to be part of the family." I hugged her so tight, I could barely breathe. And then she did something I'll never forget. She sat up, took my phone, and opened the video. Her voice calm but steady. She said, "People should know the truth." She recorded herself, sitting cross-legged, her swollen cheek still visible. "My name is Zoe. I'm 10 years old. Yesterday, I went to my Aunt Jessica's engagement party. I spilled a drink by accident. She hit me. Then they kicked us out. That was all. Simple. Honest." My fingers trembled as I held the phone. Megan had done her part. Now it was my turn. I didn't know what would happen when the world saw the truth, but I knew this. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. The next morning, sunlight poured through the blinds, warm and indifferent, like the world hadn't watched my child get assaulted and thrown out like trash just hours before. Zoe was still asleep when I opened my laptop. My hands hovered over the keyboard as I typed "child assault lawyer" near me. I'd never filed a legal case in my life, but something had shifted in me. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was a shield. By noon, I had an appointment with attorney Carla Reyes, a child advocacy specialist recommended by Megan. She had helped families in abuse cases, and when I told her what happened, she didn't flinch. "You have video proof?" she asked. I handed her my phone. She watched in silence. When the slap echoed through the tiny office, she paused, looked up at me, and said, "We're filing criminal charges for child physical assault against Jessica Brooks. We'll also add emotional neglect and endangerment charges against your parents, Linda and Frank." The words were cold, precise, just what I needed. That evening, I sat down with Zoe and explained what I was doing. "This isn't just to punish them," I told her. "It's to make sure they can never hurt you, or anyone else again." Zoe nodded, her little fingers wrapped around her stuffed fox. "Are we gonna win?" "We already did," I said quietly, "the moment you told the truth." By the next day, a restraining order was filed against Jessica, Linda, and Frank. They were legally barred from approaching us or contacting Zoe in any way. Attorney Reyes submitted the video to the court as primary evidence, along with Zoe's recorded statement. We filed the case in family court and juvenile protection services under California's Child Protection Act. Reyes explained that slapping a minor in a non-parental role, especially at a public event, was a criminal offense. And because Linda and Frank failed to intervene and instead facilitated the ejection, they were also liable. It wasn't just a case. It was a message. You don't get to hit a child and walk away clean. Not anymore. That same night, I received a call from the court's assigned child welfare officer. She had seen the video. "We'll be doing a follow-up at your residence," she said gently. "Not because we doubt you, but because we want to show this child has someone who stood up for her." I looked across the room at Zoe, drawing quietly at the kitchen table. "Yes," I said, voice steady. "She does." I never expected what came next. Megan had asked for my permission before sharing the video online. At first, I hesitated. I wasn't interested in turning our pain into internet drama. But then I watched Zoe's recorded voice again, the strength in her 10-year-old words, the quiet heartbreak in her eyes. "This isn't revenge," I told Megan. "It's truth." She posted it that evening, a clip of Zoe speaking softly, followed by the raw footage of the party, the punch spilling, the slap, the cries, the crowd silence. There was no music, no editing, no filters. By morning, it had over 200,000 views. By lunch, #JusticeForZoe was trending on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Parenting bloggers reposted it. News pages picked it up. Activists weighed in. Celebrities commented. "Unacceptable. She's a child." People weren't just watching, they were enraged. Why did no one stop her? Where were the other guests? This is what happens in perfect families behind closed doors. And beneath it all, one sentence echoed everywhere. "Zoe, we believe you." Jessica tried to respond. Of course she did. 2 days after the post went viral, she uploaded a heavily edited video to her page, soft piano playing in the background, her makeup carefully done to look undone, her voice trembling just enough. "I'm deeply sorry for how things looked," she said. "But I was under immense stress. There was a misunderstanding. I love my niece." She never said Zoe's name, never mentioned the slap. Instead, she suggested that the incident had been manipulated by people trying to harm her brand. Then came the worst part. She implied I had encouraged Zoe to act out for attention. I was shaking when I watched it. Zoe, who had been coloring quietly next to me, looked up. "She's lying," she said calmly. "I know," I replied. But the world wasn't buying Jessica's performance. Her comments section exploded. She hit a kid, and now she's crying for followers? Evelyn, we believe you and your daughter. Save the fake tears. The internet has receipts. Jessica started bleeding followers. Brands distanced themselves. Her upcoming product launches were canceled within 48 hours. Sponsors issued statements condemning her actions. It was a storm, but for once, it wasn't raining on us. Megan called and said they thought they could control the story. But you changed the ending. I wasn't celebrating, but I was breathing. Zoe asked, "Are we safe now?" I nodded. We're getting there. It was the third night after the video went viral when I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and froze. Adam, Jessica's fiancé, or maybe not anymore. He stood in the hallway wearing the same suit from the engagement party, jacket off, tie loosened, eyes heavy with something between guilt and shock. I opened the door slowly. "Hi," he said quietly. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I didn't move. I waited. "I saw the video," he continued. "And the comments. I didn't know what to say until now. But I needed to say something." I stepped aside and let him in. Zoe peeked up from the couch, where she was holding her stuffed fox. Her eyes widened when she saw him, but she didn't say anything. Adam knelt beside her. "I'm so sorry for what happened to you," he said softly. "What Jessica did, what your family did, it was wrong. And you were really brave to speak up." Zoe gave a small nod and looked down. He stood and turned to me. "I didn't want to believe it," he said. "But after I saw it, I couldn't unsee it." I offered him a glass of water, which he didn't touch. He just stared into the distance like he was trying to piece something together.
"There's more," he said.
After everything happened, I couldn't sleep. I remembered Jessica had mentioned working with a PR team for the engagement, so I checked the shared email folder from our wedding planning. He pulled out his phone and opened a series of emails. There were messages between her and her manager. She was negotiating a $500,000 brand deal for our wedding content, behind my back. And she made it clear she was planning to push a prenup that would favor her once the hype died down. Then she'd move on. My mouth went dry. "She never loved me," he said quietly. "She loved the image of me."
I didn't know what to say.
Then Adam added, "I broke it off this morning. I told her mother. I've already ended all pending business deals and canceled the brand contracts." Zoe looked up from the couch. "Does that mean you're not going to marry Aunt Jessica?" Adam gave her the gentlest smile I'd ever seen.
"No, Zoe."
"I'm not." He turned to me one last time. "You were right, Evelyn, about all of them. And I'm sorry it took this long for me to see it." And then he left. And for the first time in years, I felt like someone had finally stood beside me, not because they were expected to, but because it was the right thing to do. 3 days later, I received an email marked urgent. It was from my father. "We need to talk. This has gone too far. A private resolution meeting has been scheduled. Attendance is expected. No apology. No remorse. Just expectation." I stared at the screen, heat rising in my chest. For years, I would have deleted something like this without a second thought. But this time I didn't. I forwarded it to Attorney Reyes, who replied with a single line. "If you go, don't go alone." I took her advice legally and emotionally. I told her I'd handle myself, but I made sure Zoe stayed with Eleanor during the meeting, just in case. The venue was a neutral office space in Beverly Hills. Classy, quiet, impersonal. When I entered the room, Jessica sat with her arms crossed and sunglasses on like she was shielding herself from shame. My mother, Linda, wore a pressed cream blouse and a rehearsed look of concern. Frank didn't even look up. I took a seat directly across from them, calm and still. Jessica was the first to speak. "You've embarrassed this family beyond belief." I said nothing. "You let your daughter post lies online." "They weren't lies." I cut in. Linda sighed. "Evelyn, this could have been handled privately. Like adults." "You mean swept under the rug?" I asked. "Like everything else?" "You've always been dramatic," she snapped. "You're doing this to make us look bad." I leaned forward and met her eyes unshaken.
"No."
"You made yourselves look bad." And then Adam walked in. Everyone turned. "I've heard enough," he said. "Jessica, you used me. You used your niece. You tried to twist the truth to save your image." He placed a folder on the table. "These are formal terminations of all business contracts we had. I've pulled every investor. The wedding's off. And I want nothing to do with you or this circus." Jessica's lips parted, but no words came out. She looked like she was watching her world crumble in real time. Frank finally spoke. "Adam, let's not make a scene." "You already did," Adam said coldly. As I stood to leave, Jessica shouted after me. "You always wanted this, didn't you? To ruin me." I paused at the door, turned, and said quietly,
No.
"I wanted you to love us. But since that was too hard, at least now we're free." And then I walked out. Zoe was waiting in the next room, coloring with Eleanor. When she saw me, she smiled and ran to me. That meeting didn't just end a chapter, it ended a legacy of silence I'd been carrying my entire life. The day after the meeting, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the blinds, not the heavy kind that mocked your grief, but the kind that gently reminded you made it through the storm. Zoe was still asleep, curled under her favorite fox blanket, her mouth slightly open, her cheeks finally free of tension. The apartment, my late husband's apartment, felt different. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like a place I was clinging to. It felt like home. I made coffee, sat at the small dining table, and opened my laptop. The freelance jobs were steady, but something in me wanted more now. Not more money, more purpose.
And that's when it came to me.
I began designing a small online shop, a blend of digital prints, empowering quotes for single mothers, child-friendly art kits, and a simple mission: art that speaks when you can't. I called it Z plus E Studio. Within a month, we had over 10,000 followers on Instagram. Orders came in steadily. Parenting pages began reposting my designs. A children's charity reached out to collaborate. Zoe helped with packaging and even designed a few doodles of her own that we turned into stickers. She would hold them up and ask, "Do you think other kids will like this?" "I think they'll love it," I'd say. And people did. The same community that rallied behind Zoe's voice now supported our healing. Eleanor checked in often, more like a mentor than a mother-in-law. Megan became a regular visitor, bringing cookies and updates about the world we had quietly stepped away from. Jessica tried a few more times to control the narrative online, but the damage was done. Her voice had lost its grip. Linda and Frank, they obeyed the restraining order. Mostly because they didn't want further public backlash. But also, I believe, because deep down, they knew they'd crossed a line they could never walk back from. I wasn't angry anymore.
Just done.
One evening, as Zoe and I sat on the floor surrounded by sketchbooks and snack wrappers, she looked up and asked, "Is this what normal feels like?" I thought for a moment. "Not just normal," I said. "This is what safe feels like." She leaned against me, our pencils still in hand, and whispered, "I like it here." And I realized I didn't just win a case. I didn't just silence the people who hurt us. I built something better in their place. Something real. Something ours. It was a quiet Wednesday afternoon. Zoe was at her desk, drawing a fox in a superhero cape. I was responding to customer emails from the shop when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in me said I needed to. I picked up. "Evelyn," came the voice.
Low.
Familiar. My father. I said nothing. "I'm not good at this," he began. "Never have been. But that day in the meeting, I heard what you said, and I realized
I should have said something.
a long time ago." My hand tightened around the phone. He continued, "We hurt you.
Not just now.
For years. And I let it happen. I don't expect forgiveness. I needed you to hear that. At least once." There was a long pause. The kind that echoes louder than words. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you." Then I added, "But I'm not carrying this anymore." He let out a breath. "I understand." And then he hung up. No pleading. No excuses. Just the sound of a door closing for good. That night, I pulled out an old photo album I had stored in the back of the closet. The cover was worn, its corners bent. Inside were pages and pages of family photos from when Jessica and I were kids. Birthday parties, vacations, graduations. Almost every picture centered around her. In one holiday photo, I was only half visible, hidden behind the tree. Forgotten even in print. Zoe sat beside me and flipped through the pages. She pointed to the picture with the tree. "Why weren't you in more pictures?" I smiled faintly and brushed her hair behind her ear. "Because they didn't see me," I said. "Not the way I needed them to." Zoe was quiet for a moment. Then she closed the album, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "I see you." That was it. The words I didn't know I had been waiting my whole life to hear. I hugged her tightly and let the tears fall. Not because I was broken. Not because I was angry. But because I was finally free. The next day, I packed that photo album into a cardboard box and slid it into the back of the closet, not out of hatred, not to erase the past, but simply to make room for the life we were now building. One built not on duty or silence, but on truth, choice, and love. A few weeks later, I did something I hadn't done in years. I booked a trip just for Zoe and me. No obligations. No family. No hidden guilt in the shadows. Sedona, Arizona. It had been my dream destination for a long time. Something about the red rocks, the open sky, the silence of the desert always called to me. But there had always been some excuse to cancel. Not this time. We stayed in a small cedar cabin tucked just beneath the cliffs. There were no neighbors, no noise, no pressure to perform or prove anything. Just us. Zoe ran along the hiking trails during the day, collecting little stones and pointing out shapes in the clouds. At night, we sat outside wrapped in thick blankets, sipping hot cocoa and tracing constellations. There was no internet. No calls from lawyers. No reminders of Jessica's betrayal or my parents' absence. Just wind, stars, and peace. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the horizon and turned the rocks gold, Zoe and I sat on a wooden bench overlooking the valley. She leaned her head against my shoulder, her legs swinging freely. "Do you think they miss us?" she asked. I didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Maybe," I said. "But missing someone doesn't mean they were good to you." She was quiet for a moment. Then, with all the calm wisdom of a child who had already lived through more than most adults, she asked, "Will we see them again?" I took a breath. "Maybe," I said truthfully, "but not if it means we have to be small to fit into their world." Zoe nodded slowly, letting my words settle deep. She looked up at the sky. "I like our world better." "So do I," I whispered. And I meant it. I didn't just walk away from a party that night. I walked away from a lifetime of silence, shame, and trying to be enough for people who only ever saw me as a shadow. I walked into a new life. A better one. One where my daughter knew she mattered. One where I finally knew I did too. And as we sat there, the desert wind brushing through our hair and stars beginning to blink awake above us, I realized something. This wasn't the end of our story. It was only the beginning. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it touched your heart or made you think, please give it a like. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful real-life inspired content. Your support means everything.